Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. I'm not here with Geeky Sparkles in this video, but we're going to talk about Nintendo going crazy with legal action. They're threatening to take down decades of Nintendo-related add-ons for Garry's Mod, Gmod. They've been out there for a long time, right? Gmod's been around for a very long time, and now Nintendo's lawyers are going crazy. And this is after they've gone after emulation sites, after they've gone after fan games. I don't know what's going on at Nintendo, but it's not good. It's not good for gamers. And this kind of reminds me of, I think it was about a decade ago, where they were striking YouTubers who were playing their games, and then they were going to force you to join their MCN and give them 50% of the money. This reminds me of that. It's not a good look. And Nintendo, for the most part, there is a lot of fan goodwill, but this sort of stuff, it's not going to go very well for them. I don't think it's going to go very well for them. We're going to talk about this. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. Check out the audio version of Clownfish TV wherever you find podcasts. Check out our Patreon with exclusive content, patreon.com/clownfishtv. And yeah, we'll talk about this and video game preservation. I think that they're both kind of interconnected, because I think companies like Nintendo striking everything they can strike and then also not making older games available for download, it's definitely going to throw a wrench into the intention to preserve old games. Because even games that you have physical copies of, if they're on a cartridge or a CD-ROM, the stuff degrades, right? It decays. The only way to actually save the games that we played as kids forever is to have a digital version of them and hope to God that that server doesn't go down. But let's talk about this first. This is coming from The Verge. Everybody's talking about it. Garry's Mod is taking down decades of Nintendo-related add-ons. Again, I think this is a massive overcorrection, and I think it's triggered in part by Palworld. I'm going to be honest, because this is when Nintendo really started ramping up the legal action. Back in March, there's this story that after almost 10 years, unofficial Pokemon website known for sharing fan-made games shuts down after receiving a DMCA takedown notice. This was Yuzu. It was an emulation site. This is the beginning of March. This is the Switch emulator, and they took them down too. I mean, it's just like, it's crazy. Why is this happening now? Why is Nintendo only seeking legal action against Yuzu, against Switch emulator now? Because it's emulating new stuff. But again, Nintendo hasn't really been hyper aggressive until I would say the last year or so. I'm hearing all kinds of examples of Nintendo just being completely overbearing, for sure. And this is like a whole new level here. The game's creator, Garry Newman, has confirmed that the copyright takedown requests are legit. Some people said that they were not legit. It was somebody impersonating Nintendo, but they are. This comes from The Verge. The popular physics sandbox game Garry's Mod, which has been around for a very long time, is pulling all of its Nintendo-related add-ons following copyright takedown requests from the gaming giant. On Wednesday, the developers of Garry's Mod made a post on Steam saying users may have noticed that certain Nintendo-related workshop items have been taken down, adding that this is not a mistake. The takedowns came directly from Nintendo. Honestly, this is fair enough. This is Nintendo's content, and what they allow and don't allow is up to them. The post reads, they don't want you playing with that stuff in Garry's Mod. That's their decision. We have to respect that and take down as much as we can. This is an ongoing process. We have 20 years of uploads to go through. I didn't realize Garry's Mod was around that long. I was thinking like 15, but damn. Garry's Mod began removing Nintendo-related content earlier this year, but some users believe these requests were from a copyright troll rather than from Nintendo itself. After looking into this most recent round of copyright takedowns, Garry's Mod creator Garry Newman confirmed on X that he has been assured the takedown requests are legit. Mario called him up and threatened to break his legs if he didn't pay the rent. Didn't pay the protection money this month. The takedown request means Garry's Mod will have to remove a huge swath of Nintendo-related maps and other items. Over the years, player-made content on Garry's Mod has allowed players to do things like turn Super Mario 64 into a first-person shooter or even explore Hyrule as Link. Since there's so much Nintendo-related content on Garry's Mod, developers are asking the community to remove any infringing work they've uploaded. The Verge reached out to Nintendo with a request for comment, but didn't hear back. Nintendo has long been known to be fiercely protective of its IP. The company was involved in the removal of the Dolphin emulator from Steam last year, filed a $2.4 million lawsuit against the developers of the Switch emulator Yuzu, leading to the shutdown of other emulators over fear of legal action from Nintendo. I mean, they've always been protective, but this is like a whole nother level. 20 years. 20 years this content has sat out there, and they haven't done anything about it. And now all of a sudden they decide they're going to go after Garry's Mod. Like, I don't even know what to think at this point, because I'm like, dude, can we even play Nintendo content on live streams? Because I'm worried they're going to go back to where they were 10, 12 years ago, whenever it was that they were striking content, people playing their games, and then forcing you to join their MCN for 50% of the cut. It's like, come on, Nintendo. People thought you were the good guys. You know, it was like the Switch was like one of the last consoles that didn't have a whole lot of censorship, and now we're going down this road, right? And I do think it's because of Palworld in part, because I noticed when Palworld came out, that's the dominoes just started falling over, because they were looking into Palworld to see if they had stolen any of their Pokemon assets or whatever. And I have to wonder if they didn't retain legal services, and then the lawyers decided just like, you know what, let's just rip the damn Band-Aid off and sue everybody. You know, I don't know what's going on, but I don't think it's going to set well with fans. I mean, you've got your Nintendo defenders that are going to be like, yeah, you know, it is their stuff. And technically, legally, yeah, it is their stuff. It's just, why now? Why are you doing this now? Is it because Nintendo is more of a global brand, a movie brand now because of Universal? You don't want videos out there, people playing Gmod with, Pikachu, popping a cap in Mario's ass or something. I mean, what is going on? But I mean, I've seen videos getting taken down or struck, people playing Pokemon, Minecraft. Those videos are getting struck after years. I mean, I think they're really not gonna win over a lot of fans. I'm just saying. This was like back in March. This wasn't even. It was like a month ago that Relic Castle, which had been running since 2014, had been taken offline after those in charge of it allegedly received a DMCA takedown notice. The website previously functioned as a forum for Pokemon fans to talk, as well as a place to share fan-made Pokemon games. The details of the alleged DMCA notice haven't been shared, so it's not confirmed if it comes from the Pokemon company itself or what the reasoning was. It could be related to the fan games on the site. It's just like, wow, this is crazy. 10 years. The site was online for 10 years. It's with a heavy heart that I announced that the Relic Castle website has been taken down following a DMCA takedown notice. A statement posted by the Relic Castle Twitter account reads, "It's always been a nonprofit, ad-free, tight-knit community, and we pride ourselves in what we have achieved." They have 20,000 members and 65,000 posts. And that's it. Before being taken down, the website's code of conduct stated that distributing and linking to illegal goods such as pirated movies, games, music, ROMs, or other disc images of games was not allowed. It's not been confirmed if the DMCA came directly from Pokemon, or Nintendo, or what, but like, they're totally going after anybody that does anything that's unofficial. And I think it's overkill. I mean, I get you want to protect your brand. I get that. But like at this point, Disney doesn't even defend its brand as fiercely as Nintendo is defending its brand. And Yuzu got sued. I mean, then they had the Dolphin incident last year. They were going to actually put this on the game store and in Steam. And then Apple announced that you can actually run emulators on your iPhone now. So Nintendo is going to be like, crap. We got to do something about that. And it's like, I don't understand, because the thing is, the emulators themselves, there's nothing wrong with the emulator. Because you're not distributing, or you shouldn't be distributing the emulator with the software. The copyright infringement is the software. But Nintendo was not happy with the idea of an emulator being released on a major digital storefront. Request was sent to Valve to prevent the release of the emulator on Steam, ending any chances of the planned launch going any further. And again, they're just really, this is overkill. But I think I'm gonna segue into this. Geeky was talking about this. Video game libraries could aid preservation of games unless the ESA has its way. Game preservation could soon get a boost whether the ESA likes it or not. And I think the thing is, we do need to preserve these games because cartridges are getting harder and harder to find. They're not working. We know disk rot is a thing. So even if you have your games on, for PS1 on physical, it doesn't mean that those games are always going to work. And arcade cabinets especially, and being someone who's grown up around arcades, and my uncle actually used to repair arcade machines. That was like what he did. And I used to hang out in the arcades all the time and in the workshop when he was like repairing arcade cabinets and pinball machines and all that stuff. It breaks. And it's hard to replace the parts. It's very hard to replace the parts. And some of these machines are so rare that there might only be a handful of them in existence. And some of those components are so rare that you would almost have to buy another machine if you can find one to cannibalize it for parts. Ask anyone who collects vintage cabinets about this. It's very, very hard. So emulation is the best chance to archive all these games. But, especially if these companies aren't going to bring the games out. So it said video game researchers are attempting to preserve older games, but the Entertainment Software Association is refusing to sign on to their plan to make older games easier to access. Researchers were seeking an exemption to copyright law to make it easier to move out-of-print games to online archives for research and preservation purposes. In a lot of cases, the companies aren't even in business anymore. I mean, there are so many companies that made video games, so many studios that made video games that they just disappeared. They got gobbled up, or sometimes they don't even know who owns the rights to what. I mean, there are a lot of one-off publishers back in the 80s and 90s that maybe made one or two games. Maybe they had an arcade machine out, and nobody knows who actually owns that stuff now. It's probably Square. They own everything. Sega, Square, they gobble all this stuff up. But yeah, the ESA argued to block it. It's still possible to move forward without the ESA's help, they said. The ESA's comments came during a hearing with the U.S. Copyright Office over a proposed rule change that could allow researchers to access archives of preserved games. Steve Englund, a lawyer from the ESA, said that no set of restrictions or limitations on these digital libraries would be strong enough for the organization to agree to them. So, yeah, they're probably afraid that people are just going to set a precedent for pirating games. An existing rule makes it illegal to circumvent technological copyright control measures like the digital rights management systems found on many games, regardless of why those measures are being circumvented. That means that researchers attempting to remove DRM from games to preserve them in another format are treated the same by the law as someone pirating games. That's concerning. Preservation advocates have already won exemptions that allow limited research access to circumvented copies of games that are no longer on the market, but only on the premises of a research institution. As NYU professor Lane Nooney explained at the hearing, there are few such sites in existence, and given that researchers tend to need sustained access to archive games, traveling to a physical location long enough to do their work represents a significant financial and logistical impediment. Basically, we want an online library of games, which a lot of people have. They in various forms, they have access to these games. But you're not allowed to talk about that. Englund's argument in the hearing largely revolved around the issue of recreational playing games for fun. He argued that no controls established by research institutions would be enough to prevent non-researchers from abusing video game libraries in order to score free access to out-of-print games. Even limiting access to researchers from credentialed institutions and only allowing archives with physical locations to make their collections available online were deemed insufficient. The issue of access to out-of-print games is a huge deal for researchers. At the hearing, the Video Game History Foundation's Phil Salvador pointed to a 2023 study by the VGHF in the Software Preservation Network, which found that a stunning 87% of video games published before 2010 are no longer available commercially. That is true. There's so much stuff out there, it's not available. For games made before 85, the figure drops to around 3%. As Salvador points out, that period is when video games were still a nascent medium developing its own rules and standards, and thus it's especially important to researchers. Despite almost no games from that time period being available for purchase, they're still off limits to the majority of researchers. Yeah, it's crazy. I think what, wait, that's Final Fantasy 14. Yeah, furries and Final Fantasy 14. Yeah, because these publishers want to be able to reissue and reissue and reissue the same games over and over and over again, especially companies like Square, right? And they want to be able to do that. And basically the games exist in this state of perpetual current year, right? It's always current year. It's like 1984. It's like whatever the latest download of Tomb Raider is, with or without tits, with or without pinups, that's the version you're going to play. That's the current version of Tomb Raider. And that's dangerous. It's the same with digital media, with movies too. I mean, you can, if you've only got the current version of a film available, that means everything is the special edition. And by special edition, it's like whatever offends somebody today. That is the version of the movie that's put out there until they decide they don't want to make it available anymore. But even then, like, you can buy this stuff on physical, and it doesn't mean you have access to it forever, because the discs do degrade. So this is really interesting that they're fighting so hard to keep people from preserving games, because God forbid you want to play a 40-year-old ColecoVision game that's no longer in print and has never been remade and whatever. God forbid you want to play like, freaking Ladybug or something. I mean, come on. So there we go, guys. Nintendo's nuts. They're not going to allow their games to be archived. I can guarantee it, because they're going to reissue them forever and ever and ever. Please subscribe. We'll talk later.